Hey, welcome to my Warframes Where They Are Now series, a little series I've had brewing in the back of my mind since the early days of Warframe, quote unquote. I'm going to put this little intro at the beginning of every video in this series. If you've heard this once or more, feel free to skip it. This is just my opinion and is not guaranteed to be fact. Remember, with Warframe, everyone plays at least a little different from each other. That's why there's 52 frames as of making this intro, of course. That being said, I do plan on being as objective as I can with this series. But bias will always be a potential problem, and will definitely shine through in certain episodes, if not all. Now, that being said, I hope you enjoy the series. October 20th, 2023. Today's frame is Nezha, the frame with probably the hardest to pronounce name. Although definitely not the hardest to pronounce thing in Warframe. I feel like that goes to the Zooge, I think is how you pronounce it? The one that's spelled like Z-huge. Not entirely sure how you pronounce that, but anyways, jokes aside, Nezha is actually a frame I find to be pretty damn good, so let's get right on into it. Base stats on a level 30 Nezha Prime are 265 armor, 225 energy, 465 health, 185 shields, and 1.2 sprint speed. At least this one actually has a reason for that. Nezha's passive is he slides 60% faster and goes 35% farther. Well, at least he's good at sledding. He does have a passive augment, and that is Controlled Slide. Disable Nezha's passive and increase ability strength by 15%. I find it kind of wacky that they made a mod to deactivate an ability. But yeah, I wouldn't bother with this myself. The 15% ability strength really isn't worth it to me. Granted, if you hate the sliding, you definitely should use it, but I don't mind it, so whatever. Nezha's first ability is Firewalker. You activate it and you have a pretty good duration for the ability, but the effect does not have as good of a duration. You leave a trail of fire behind you, and enemies that are dumb enough to walk into it, which is most of them, catch on fire and actually take a pretty okay amount of damage. It's not spectacular, but it does the job. I find this actually more effective on some other frames. I actually have it on one of my Titania builds, and I have it on my Gauss build. Or one of them, anyway. Although, funny enough, I put it on Gauss primarily for the speed boost, because, you know, the meme that is world's fastest Gauss. It does have an augment, that being a Pyroclastic Flow, and you accumulate 250% of the damage Firewalker deals, unleashing it into a trail of fire that lasts 10 seconds. I've never messed with this, although I've thought about it on multiple occasions. I actually probably should at some point, because I have a slot that I could put it on. But yeah, it seems alright. His second ability is Blazing Chakram. You throw a frisbee really hard, and increases the odds of dropping health and energy from enemies that are set ablaze by it. You can also recast it to teleport to it, which is the only part of it I'd really mess with. Granted, to be fair, increased energy orbs is always nice. But yeah, I replaced it with Pillage on my builds, and we'll get into that when we get to my build section. It does have a augment, Reaping Chakram, and that is each enemy hit increases the ring's damage by 2 times and the chance for enemies to drop health and energy orbs by 0.25 times. If you like using Reaping Chakram, this is great. If you don't really care for it like me, well, it's a mod. Honestly, I will say I do like that it seems to make it, somewhat more effective. However, what I would like to see for it is I'd like to see it increase the number of bounces it has as well. But that's just me. His third ability is Warding Halo, or as I see it, an alternate take on Iron Skin. Similar to Iron Skin, it has a damage absorption time period, and its absorption multiplier at base is 2.5, which is not terrible. Especially considering, that does in fact scale with ability strength, which is pretty kick-ass in itself. But aside from that, it also does stun enemies who get too close, which is really nice. I mainly use it for the augment, but even without it, it's actually pretty solid. The augment is Safeguard, and you can cast it on allies with 50% of the effectiveness, which is actually pretty freaking awesome. So it's a spreadable Iron Skin, if you will. His fourth ability is Divine Spears. I always felt this seemed a little out of place. I don't know, that's just me. Granted, from what I gathered, that has to be with the actual, Chinese mythology character, which is why he has it. Anyways, you launch a bunch of spears out of the ground that impale enemies, and hold them there until you either deactivate it or you run out of duration. See, don't make the same mistake I did. At first, I thought this was supposed to be like a damage dealer. It's more of a CC than anything else. It's not bad. I will say there are definitely much better CCs, i.e. Disarm from Loki, but it's not terrible. I will say there's no augment, which kind of sucks. I really wish there was one, but yeah. That's definitely a Helmuth candidate, unless you're like me and don't care for the Chakram. I prefer having Divine Spears over the Chakram, but that's just me. As for my build, lovingly called Churn and Burn, it's a bit of a mixed build, a little bit of everything going on. Of course, I have Adaptation instead of Steel Fiber because, I have Warding Halo for that. But as for Pillage being on there, I have it on there for the Armor Strip mostly, because it works really well in tandem with fire damage. But it also is nice to have the shields as well. I actually prefer Pillage over Terrify these days. Unless I plan on using Creeping Terrify. I will say Terrify is really nice with the augment for that because, oh my god. But yeah. I did think about trying to squeeze Blazing Pillage on here, but I already have Safeguard and I don't really want to try to push 2 augments. So how does he perform in Deviri? Well, Nezha's actually one of the ones I do like getting in Deviri. I know that I can go a pretty good ways with him because he has a pretty good amount of survivability. That, and with my Pillage build, he has a pretty good armor strip. Keeping it relatively good, even with lesser weapons. Obviously, if you get shit weapons, you're not going to be doing too well, but to be fair, there's only a handful of frames that I do really well with shit weapons on. But yeah, no, he's actually a ton of fun as far as Steel Path goes. I will say regular Deviri, he can be boring, but with my build, it kind of saves it because of the Pillage and the Divine Spears. With lower levels, it's really satisfying to, rip armor off of enemies and then just fucking stab them to death. I mean, call me Vlad the Impaler, but it is a lot of fun. But yeah. Nezha is a frame that I have a bit of a weird history with. I had a friend that ran Nezha pretty much non-stop. It was their favorite frame, of course. And due to that, I was actually exposed to it pretty early on. However, once I got my hands on it, at first I didn't fucking get it. I thought it was weird. I was like, what's the appeal here? Because at the time, I didn't fully understand that, his 4th ability was CC, and I didn't really get the appeal of his 1st ability, and I didn't know, what to combo that with. But, as I play with him more and more, I realized he actually is pretty damn solid, and as long as you have a pretty solid build and you understand to use him for CCs, at least for the 4th ability, he is a lot of fun. Well, honestly, I don't have a whole lot more to say about him, so that'll be it. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one.